Today, Tracey is going to cover 5 mistakes that beginners make when doing nails right now.
On today's video, I want to cover a few things that I struggled with when I was a beginner. Let's go over the 5 common mistakes beginners make. Okay, I went into teacher mode, got the hair pulled back, got the glasses on, class is in session. Let's go over the first major mistake I think beginners make, and that would be prep. Prep is difficult because we have a fear of the cuticle area. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So as we know, we're always gonna start by pushing back the cuticle. And I'm gonna do something I do with a lot of my students. I usually do this on a trainer hand. We're actually gonna do it on myself. So let's see how this works. I wanna mark the cuticle area, and I'll show you what we all tend to do when we're first starting out. In fact, I'm just gonna kind of mark it all the way up. So we grab our arbor band or our hand file, right? And first thing we want to make sure we do is we season the arbor band. Very important. That way we don't have to be afraid that we're going to cut our clients. But here's the mistake, is we come in here and we're like, I know I need to remove all the shine from the nail and that I need to take care of the cuticle area. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to come here, and this is where I'm comfortable with. Okay, I've got as close to the cuticle as I'm comfortable with. Let me remove the shine from the whole surface of the nail. Okay, I'm done. And then we wonder, why do I have lifting? Let me show you why. You can see there's still a ton of that marker all the way around in that cuticle area, and this is where we're gonna get lifting. Why is it still there? Because when we're first starting out, we're afraid to tuck and get close to the cuticle. We're so afraid that we're gonna cut our client, and we should be. We should be very cautious and careful. We don't want to cut our clients, but we're so afraid of it, we stay way away from it, and that's gonna cause lifting. So let me show you the difference. Now, normally with a client, I would pull back their skin, and that kind of helps you get into those grooves. Can't do that on myself, so bear with me. Okay, we're gonna tuck right into that back area, all the way through. Now guys, I seasoned this, so it's not hurting me. In fact, I like the feeling of it. It just tucks right into that cuticle area and make sure it's nice and clean. Let's grab our swipe real quick and our clean brush. Clean it out. Do you see the difference? All that marker is gone. Again, I didn't cut myself. I didn't go underneath my skin. I didn't break any seal. All I did was tuck right up to that cuticle area, made sure it's nice and clean. Now we know we're not going to get any lifting. Okay, on to number 2. Has to do with our form application and also where we attach the product when we're applying it on the form. So if you notice, if we don't know the little tips and tricks when it comes to different forms, and we have a great video on that, we'll link it for you guys on how to form an extended hyponychium, how to form a bitten nail, how to form a square nail, and how to form a nail that's really big. Once you know those tips and tricks, it's really easy to form. But where we can start making mistakes is we get so worried about the center and applying it straight that sometimes we come and we apply our form with this little kind of notchy lip thing. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. It's kind of right here. It's kind of coming up onto the nail. The nail isn't on top of it. The form is kind of on top of the nail itself. And what's going to happen is when I put my product on there, it can't go from the form onto the nail straight. It's gonna kind of fall into this gap right here, and go over the top, which is gonna leave this area right here empty. It's gonna leave it without product. So what is that gonna cause? It's gonna cause a weak spot. It's gonna be a spot that maybe not at first, but as the nail grows out, you're gonna see this notch right here. And that is a good example, or it's actually a good place where the nail is going to be weak and can break. So that would be one of the mistakes I see people do when they're applying forms. So we're gonna grab a new form. I'm gonna apply it so there's no bend in it and it fits nice and snug and is nice and tight. Making sure we have it underneath our free edge. We're making sure our sidewalls can come out right onto that form. When we apply the product, it's gonna flow from here all the way out without any notch. Now, let me show you how we can create our own notch. Even if we don't create it with the form, we can create it when we apply. So if we grab our product and we know, hey, I want this nail to look nice and narrow. I don't want it to look wide. So we kind of apply it to our free edge and we come up our side and we attach it right to the very edge of where that nail starts. Bring this in and we kind of go, okay, we want it narrow. I know we want it narrow. Yeah, that looks good. These are all the thoughts I have in my head when I'm doing nails. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna attach it right to that free edge and I have myself a nice narrow nail. But here's the problem. Right there, we've done the exact same thing we were trying to avoid when we applied the form. The form was up and over the nail, it had that bend in it, and it created a notch. We fixed the form, but now we've done the same notch by not applying the product all the way to the sidewall. We have to make sure it's connected all the way through, or we've literally created the same notch. Why is this important? Because as that nail grows out, this is a weak spot. That weak spot eventually is going to break right there. So let me show you. I'm gonna take another pearl. And if you did this, it's totally fixable. We're just gonna take another pearl. Gonna apply it to the nail. And I'm gonna make sure I come all the way to that sidewall and bring it out. We can still bring it in for a stiletto, a ballerina, anything we want, but as long as that product now comes all the way to that back end, we're good to go. Okay, that was a lot to explain. Hopefully you understood what I was trying to say. Now we're gonna take it to number 3, and this was a huge thing for me. I was so convinced that a nail needed to be as natural as possible, pretty much look exactly like a person's natural nail. I was afraid to put product on. And what that created was ultra thin nails, which I liked the look of, but they didn't have any structure to them. So what was gonna happen? They were gonna snap. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, let's grab our product. Now I've already put on a really thin base. When I first started, this is where I'd get stuck. And then I would grab small pearls, really wet pearls, and I would kind of just put it on and I would wipe it right off. So I go, okay, I need more. I get another really wet pearl, put it on, and pretty much wipe it right off. And so I'd spend all this time trying to build a nail up, and then I'd get to a point that I'm like, okay, I know I have to file, and I don't want to have to file that much off. So, and I want this to be a nice thin nail, I'm gonna leave it where it is. But here's the problem, guys. I've left myself no room whatsoever for filing. And if I do file this, I'm gonna thin it even more. Have to file it because we need to shape it and we need to make sure it's nice and smooth. So I'm gonna end up with this ultra thin nail. And I know we don't want our nails to look like 2x4s, but we do, especially the longer it gets, the more structure, especially right here in that stress apex area, we need. You can create illusions of thinness at the tip, especially for a long nail. We can come underneath. We'll show you some tips and tricks on that later. But you have to make sure that you have your structure. So this would be my third mistake that I see beginners make, is making your nails too thin. So let me show you how much more I would apply to this nail to make sure it's good. I would probably grab myself another good sized pearl. I'm gonna put it down right about there, blend it into the back, bring it out. And you see how I'm letting it kind of set up? That way I don't wipe it all off. Once it sets up a little bit, I'm able to wipe it forward, keeping the product on the nail where I want it, and giving myself enough strength and enough structure that that nail won't break. Let me show you one more thing. Even if I wanted, this nail's fine, but for me, I would rather add too much product, give myself room to file, room to shape. I have an electric file for that. And that way I don't have to worry about having a nail that's too thin, and I've given myself room to make sure I can shape it and do what I need to it. I know this is a little probably different than a lot of people will teach you, but I actually rather see you go a little too thick than too thin. Okay, my fourth mistake that I did, and a lot of beginners do, is actually now creating a notch when we file. So not filing the proper way. When we're filing a nail, we know we want it, again, we want the nail to look thin, but a lot of times we do it in the wrong way. So I'm gonna show you what not to do and actually how to file it so the nail doesn't look wide anymore without creating that notch. So the next thing I'm gonna show you is what we tend to do with our sidewalls. I'm gonna show you the proper way of doing it first, because we need the sidewall to come up and straight with that groove. I've extended it way past, a little exaggerated, but I want you guys to get the point. I never really worry about my sidewalls too much, so this is common for it to look this way for me because it takes 2 seconds for it to file. But what we'll do is sometimes we're looking at the nail and we're filing and we're shaping it and we're like, you know what, that nail still looks wide. And we come in and we file our sidewalls more and we file our sidewalls more, but what is actually giving you that illusion of being too wide is this right here. The fact that it's overhanging and it needs to come up. So I'm gonna try to hold still enough for you guys to see. I'm actually gonna start here on the tip, and I'm gonna bring that file and I'm gonna file back and forth until it comes straight with that groove. Now, if you notice, I'm holding my file straight, not turning it in or out. It's straight. And we're gonna bring that up until that sidewall comes straight out. Let's look at it a little bit more. And I'm gonna bring it up even more until it comes straight. Now our nail won't look wide from the top because we've taken care of it in the proper way. What I used to do, what a lot of people do, we file in this way, come in this way. And what that does when we file that way is we come into our sidewall, everything that we've been trying to prevent with our form, with our application, we have now created it at the very end with our file by filing in sideways. See, I'm not keeping the file straight anymore. I'm taking it at a cross. Let's see, what would you call this? A sideways way of filing. And that is gonna create that little notch or perfectly right in that stress area where we need it to be nice and strong. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm gonna take my file. You see that right there? I've totally taken out the product there. Now, again, I'm gonna have a weak spot. Maybe it won't break right away, but after some time, a week or two, I've now created a weak spot that's grown out to here, and it's gonna break. So we've created what we've done our whole service trying to prevent. 4.5 of this is being afraid to file the nail. You have to make sure the nail looks nice. You have to make sure that it's nicely shaped, that it's nicely blended, because when you put your gel polish on or anything else on top of it or on your top coat, if you haven't blended that nail in, you're gonna see it, and so will your client. This is another reason why I would rather see you guys apply a little too much product versus not enough product. That way, you've given yourself room, you've given yourself permission to file and get your shape the way you need it. And one more thing that has to do with filing. So we'll go 4.75 is, again, we're right back to the cuticle. We get afraid of that cuticle area. We get afraid that we're gonna cut our client, and so we don't blend that back end well. I'm telling you, if there's a ledge there and your client can feel it, they're gonna pick at it. I can't blame them. I would do the same thing. Season your file. Make sure you take care of that sharpness and make sure you get in there and blend that back end. Okay, that gets us to number 5, and I think this is the most important, at least for me. As a new tech, we're so afraid to let people know that maybe we don't know exactly what we're doing. We haven't given ourselves permission to fail. We have all this pressure on ourselves that we went to school and we should know what we're doing. School usually only teaches you the very basics. You have to get further education, whether that's videos, whether that's taking one of our OWCs, whether that's asking the person next to you for help and for advice. Give yourself permission to fail. You're going to fail. Become one with it. I failed many times. Give yourself permission to admit that you don't know exactly what you're doing, and let people know. People want to help you. We want to help you. Let the person next to you in your salon know, hey, can I get some help? I guarantee they're gonna help you, and your nails are just gonna get better and better.